This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco is here today, InsideTheBirds.com. He has his depth charts up. Very cool. Good read for those of you who want to go over to InsideTheBirds.com and check out Andrew's take on this. I'm very intrigued by it. We'll have a good conversation now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Just got a fresh email from the Eagles right in time for Football at 4 with the upcoming Eagles media schedule. Tomorrow, the rookies will have a press conference at 12:30. Practice begins at 1:50. Nick Sirianni at 2:50. Andrew, it feels like football season. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mike. The football season is here. We finally made it, and I can't wait to cover this season.
Yeah, man. We'll get your initial take on the draft. This is the first time we've talked to you since the draft, and kind of give us your overview on how the weekend actually ended up playing out and, you know, some of your favorite moments for Howie Roseman, because he was extra busy.
Yeah, you'd be hard-pressed to find a handful of teams that did a better job coming out of draft weekend with a haul like the Eagles did. I really think that, obviously, the draft was very top-heavy for the Eagles. Being able to come away with Cooper DeJean and Quon Mitchell is just a phenomenal get in and of itself. But then I thought they did some pretty shrewd moves by adding a Trotter Jr. in the 5th round. Jalix Hunt, who I was all over in the pre-draft process. I reported that he had visited Philadelphia on a 30 visit. And they added Anias Smith, who I think is going to be able to contribute as a slot player and also as a returner. They did some good things on day 3, adding some complementary pieces to complement what they've already done on day 1 and day 2.
Get a quick overview on some of the guys here. Let's get your thought on Mitchell, because obviously, Andrew, they had a choice between Mitchell and Arnold there. Which one of those two did you think was a better fit?
Quon Mitchell, and you know, you and I have talked about this. I've had him as my cornerback 1 throughout the whole process. I thought he checked off all the boxes coming from, going through the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and answering any questions that folks may have had coming from a smaller school. I think he's built for the moment, built for the position. He has the mental makeup of somebody that can be a surefire day 1 starter, and you're not going to have to worry about him. And complimenting Darius Slay, who, by the way, that is my that's my comp for him. I think that you're getting 2 bona fide studs at corner, and they're going to be able to make some plays for you. And then you have to wonder where Cooper DeJean fits in. And I think his easiest path to playing time would be at nickel.
You mentioned Cooper DeJean. They get up and trade for him. They jump over 10 spots. They go from 50 all the way up to 50 and 53. They move all the way up to 40 to make that pick. So they make a big leap. Does this tell you that they have a specific kind of role and plan for him in mind?
Well, for one, it tells you that they had a first-round grade, which Howie Roseman said as much. But I would also tell you that teams may have bypassed on him because they didn't know exactly where his fit was going to be. If you're a team that wants to take him, ideally, you want to have a plan in place. You don't like to take a positionless player and then hope you figure it out when he gets here. So that being said, I think the Eagles have a vision of where they intend to use him. I don't know where that's going to be. We're not really going to find that out until they actually hit the practice field. During the whole pre-draft process, I viewed him through the lens of a safety, but that's not to say that he's not going to play nickel or outside, corner. He can do all those things. And you have to look at where his quickest pathway to playing time is going to be. If you have Quon Mitchell and Darius Slay at corner, and you have predictably Reed Blankenship and C.J. Gardner-Johnson at safety, well, how can you get another playmaker on the field that is a first-round talent? I think that might be the nickel position, because Avonte Maddox, it's not a slam dunk that he's going to make the team or even be able to be healthy and get through the summer. So I think that that's probably the best-case scenario.
Andrew DiCecco, Football for. Quick look at the Eagles draft class from Andrew. We talked to him last Thursday. Jalix Hunt, a guy you said you were all over, 3rd round. People said, was this a reach? What do you got?
I don't think it's a reach, and I'll give you a few different reasons why I feel pretty strongly about that. For one, he was a top 100 player on my board, and Daniel Jeremiah, who folks have a very high opinion of, myself included, he was number 64 on his board. So that kind of gives you a sense of, I mean, looking at it from his perspective, where the league views him. So he may be a new name for the media, but in the NFL world, he was a known commodity and someone who was at the Combine, performed well there. He's at the Senior Bowl, performed well there. And I knew that the league was really high on him, and I knew that he was trending towards day 2 territory. So I didn't really view that as a reach. Now, 94, you look at it and say, well, I think they could have got him in the 4th round. Not so fast. The Jacksonville Jaguars brought him in on a 30 visit, and they picked at 96. So that's a team that needed a pass rusher, so they very well could have taken him right around there as well. So it's not even a sure thing that he would have made it to the 4th round. I like the pick, and I think he gives you an intriguing project player with measurables, with athletic traits that are off the charts, and you get him with this coaching staff, a veteran-laden coaching staff. Vic Fangio and Jeremiah Washburn, those guys, they're going to be able to hone his skills, and he's not going to have to come in with the pressure that a lot of high draft picks, such as a Nolan Smith, are coming in with, feeling like you have to assume a large workload. He's going to be able to kind of contribute maybe situationally while he continues to develop his play strength and refine his pass rush moves. And he's going to be a force on special teams as well.
Yeah, is he a guy that sits for a year, or do you think he has a year 1 role?
Yeah, I don't like the term redshirting. I've seen a lot of folks float that out there, and I don't think he's going to have a prominent role on defense by any stretch, but I think he'll have a situational role, and then he's also going to be a core special teamer. So by year 2, he's going to be able to hit the ground running, but I don't think that he's going to be relegated to the sidelines as a rookie exclusively. I think he'll be able to contribute certainly in maybe 3rd down situations and so on and so forth.
All right, let's look at Will Shipley, a running back, 4th round, who was a guy who at Clemson was a big time, had some productive games for them.
Yeah, Will Shipley's a player who's going to push Kenny Gainwell. Now, Kenny Gainwell is maligned by a large portion of the fan base, based on everything that I've gleaned from last season, but he's a player the Eagles like quite a bit. They trust him in 2- and 4-minute offenses. They like his pass protection. They like his toughness and grittiness between the tackles and his ball security largely. But Will Shipley has juice. He has dynamic traits that Gainwell doesn't have. Gainwell is not explosive. He's not a home run hitter. So what he lacks, Will Shipley has. You have to see how Will Shipley is going to be able to take to pass protection, because the quickest way on the field as a young player is pass pro. The quickest way off the field is a lack of pass protection. So that's really where it's going to come in. But he's a really good pass catcher, fluid, athletic. You can move him around, have him catch passes out of the backfield as well as the slot. I like the dimension that he could potentially bring to the offense.
All right. I like the dynamics between the next 2 guys, Smith and Wilson. One guy's about 5'9", the other one's about 6'9".
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what. Ainias Smith is a player who I liked very much throughout the pre-draft process. Didn't think he was going to slide to the 5th round. I had him more pegged as a 4th round guy, but the Eagles got tremendous value there. He's, like you said, you outlined it well. He's 5'9", 190. He's not a burner, but he's very good in space. He has terrific spatial awareness. He's good after the catch. He's physical with the football after the catch. He has a good feel for finding the soft spots in zone. That's exactly what the Eagles need out of that number 3 receiver position, to be that safety valve over the middle and clear things out for the 2, Devontae and AJ on the outside. And I think he's going to have every opportunity to get that role. Obviously, there's a couple of veterans there, Devontae Parker and Paris Campbell, but Ainias Smith provides a skill set that you're not going to find amongst that receiving group, which is kind of interesting. And then Johnny Wilson, 6'7", nearly 240. A lot of folks may have had him pegged as a move tight end. Initially, that was my take, but not so fast. I don't think if the Eagles are going to be apt to throw him in as a tight end. I think they want to see what they have there as a wide receiver. He moves a little bit better than most do for someone his size. Pretty fluid, good route runner, has some decent long speed and can track the football. He's obviously going to be a red zone guy, but I think that they want to see what they have in terms of maybe as a wide receiver. And then if that doesn't work, well, maybe you have a Jawan Johnson type of project at tight end.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football 4. A lot of people want to know about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. It's funny, when they drafted Jalix Hunt, I got the, why is Howie trying to outsmart the room? They should have taken Trotter right here. Well, they got him a couple rounds later, and he's an interesting fit on this team.
Yeah, Trotter Jr. I had a 3-4 on him. He went again to the 5th, and I would also say that 5 linebackers on day 3 went before Trotter even came off the board, which even surprised me. But there's a reason for that. While he is incredibly instinctive, he has an IQ that's off the charts, he plays and flows to the football with urgency, there are limitations. And I always have to remind folks that, and not to put unrealistic expectations on the shoulders of a young player like that. He's undersized, tremendously undersized. He lacks the athleticism and sideline to sideline speed, and sometimes that affects the angles that he takes. He doesn't have the makeup speed to get to the on the ball carriers at times, and sometimes his eyes will play tricks on him. But I really think that he's a heady football player. He's instinctive. He's tough, and maybe you're able to, if you're Vic Fangio, I think you're going to be able to find a way to accentuate what he does well. A lot of folks have compared him to T.J. Edwards. T.J. Edwards was 245, 6'1", a little bit bigger, and I thought that he was just a little bit more athletic than is Trotter Jr. But all that being said, I think he's going to be a core special teamer from right out of the gate, and he might be able to contend for a situational role defensively. I just don't view him as somebody that's going to conceivably challenge or start alongside a Devin White. I think that it's still going to be Nakobe and Devin.
All right, we'll get a little deeper into that when we look at Andrew's depth chart on the defensive side of the ball. Last 2 guys, Keegan and McMahon. I guess you could throw, what's his name, Becton in there as well, because they got 2 guys deep in the draft and then brought Mekhi Becton in here. So you really end up with 3 guys post-draft.
Yeah, Trevor Keegan was one of my favorite day 3 picks for the Eagles. I just think that he's this old-school, physical, tough mauler that doesn't necessarily have the fluidity that most Jeff Stoutland linemen have, but he's a technician. I don't believe he even gave up a sack last season, and he's played in a lot of big football games. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes some noise in training camp. I'm not saying he's going to start or anything like that, but I think he might push and get the best out of Tyler Steen. Still think it's Tyler Steen's job to lose. I want to make that clear, but I think that Trevor Keegan is going to be a player down the road and probably fulfill that Sua Opeta role that they really need. And Dylan McMahon, somebody who he's going to have to battle to make the team. He's under 300. He's athletic, but he's undersized. And I think Matt Hennessy he's the backup center, and he's also a backup guard. So I think Dylan McMahon's going to have to be special and show and really catch the eye of Jeff Stoutland in order to stick around, because looking at that depth chart, I was compiling it, Mike. It's really tough to. They have a lot of talent this year, and they're heavy in a lot of numbers, so it's kind of hard to see how he factors into the equation.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, and you can check out InsideTheBirds.com. His Eagles look at the depth chart on the defensive side of the ball. Let's kind of look at some of the storylines over there. You got Sweat. And you've got, I guess, how are you envisioning the defensive line getting? You got Sweat and Huff, I guess, is that outside, edge rusher, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, I guess Milton Williams. What does it kind of look like behind those guys now as we get into the summer?
Well, they have Marlon Tuipulotu, who's been a steady player, former six-round pick back in 2020. And they have Moro Ojomo as a player who they like, but he didn't play a ton last season, so that's more of a projection. Gabe Hall is a player who is an undrafted signing from Baylor, 6'6", 290, can play any position on the defensive line. He had tons of offers coming out of the draft there. Chose Philadelphia for the fit, the scheme, and the opportunity. He might push one of those guys, but I really think that it behooves the Eagles to add a veteran there, because there's a lot of unproven entities there behind the big 3.
All right, let's go to the off-ball linebackers, because this is going to be an interesting one. You got Nakobe Dean, Devin White, who was signed, Trotter, who they brought in, and then, of course, Van Sumeren, Zach Bond, who they signed, Oren Burks, who they signed. What do you make of the competitions there? We were talking about this earlier in the week. Is Trotter in competition with Dean? Is White guaranteed a job here? How do you read these two spots?
I certainly don't view Trotter as a challenger, as a legitimate challenger to Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean's a player the Eagles really like. They patiently waited for him to get healthy. They've been around him for a couple of seasons now. They gave him the green dot last year. I think that the plan is for them to move forward with him as their middle linebacker, flanked by Devin White, who is tremendously athletic, but plays very unrestrained. Hopefully Vic Fangio is able to harness that so they can get the best out of him and they can really upgrade that second level. Trotter Jr. to me is more so vying with Ben Van Sumeren for a prominent role. I guess I would say just a role on the depth chart, and I would say both are have him obviously making the team, but I'm not so sure that Trotter Jr. is a better football player at this stage than is Ben Van Sumeren. I know the Eagles have invested heavily in his development. He's tremendously athletic. This is a guy who leaps a 40-inch vertical. He runs a 4.4. Has a year under his belt, and he takes to things pretty quickly. I had a chance to talk to him this offseason. I'm really interested to see what he's able to do. Then Trotter Jr. is gonna sort of be, he's going to have to find his way and navigate the pro level. Not everybody acclimates at the same speed. I think he's going to have a spot on this team, of course, but more so special teams is how I do that. And then Oren Burks is somebody who's kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make the roster or if he has some sort of a situational role, but I think that he's someone that he's here in case maybe one of their plans goes awry, sort of as a safety net, but I don't view him as somebody who's going to be a focal point in that linebacker room.
All right, Andrew, the secondary's got a lot of great stories. Slay, Bradbury, if he's back, is he demoted? Maddox, there's some ton of guys in that room. The safety spot, CJ, Blankenship, what goes on with, obviously, Cooper DeJean. So, man, so many interesting. Isaiah Rodgers, a lot of people wondering, what's this deal? You got Ringo and Job and Gardner and Sidney Brown. Man, this secondary has a ton of storylines. How do you kind of shake the tree out and who pops out of it?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that week one in Brazil, I have Darius Slay and Quon Mitchell as your starters. I have Reed Blankenship and C.J. Gardner-Johnson as your starting safeties. And at nickel, this is just me forecasting it right now, just to get the most talent onto the field, I would say Cooper DeJean at nickel. He's going to have a role at safety as well, I imagine, just being a hybrid player who can do a million different things. I mean, the Eagles are in a spot where they went from having a razor-thin defensive backfield to having sort of an embarrassment of riches with guys who can fill a multitude of roles. Isaiah Rodgers is there. I think Isaiah Rodgers right now, I have him further down my depth chart only because he hasn't taken a snap yet as an Eagle. But once he does, and if he performs to standard, I have no doubts that he's going to climb. But Avonte Maddox is going to have to earn his role. He's someone who's been oft injured, and the Eagles brought him back as sort of to have somebody in place that can do it, but he's far from assured a roster spot. You have a couple of hungry players in Tyler Hall vying for a spot there. Zach McPherson, of course, is coming back from an Achilles injury. They're going to be pushing Maddox. Then I look at the outside corner spot. Josh Job's a player who I've mentioned many times on your program. I like him a lot. He didn't play. He came out of training camp as one of the guys who really shined, and when the season started, he sort of fell by the wayside, and guys passed him like Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks. But I want to see maybe if Christian Parker, the new defensive backs coach, and Vic Fangio are able to get something out of Josh, because there is some talent there, and I think that if you use him correctly, we'll be able to realize that talent. Then you have Ringo and Ricks, who I get asked about a ton. I'm higher personally on Eli Ricks. I like his length. I like his ability to, just as a pure corner, he can play inside, he can play outside. He's not the athlete that Ringo is, but I think he's just more of a natural corner at this stage of his career. And then Keely Ringo is someone who is a tremendous athlete and could, I want to see how he comes back, because remember, he got off to a really slow start in training camp last year, could not see the field. It wasn't until later in the season that he did. So you want to see, is this someone who just isn't a practice player and he's better in game situations, or what the case is there? But I think I thought Ricks had a better training camp than did Ringo.
All right, good stuff, Andrew DiCecco. There's a look at the defensive side of the ball and some of the storylines that we'll be keeping an eye on. The rookie mini camp begins tomorrow. Practice at 1:50. Sirianni follows at 2:50. So we'll hear from the coach. We'll see some of the guys, and that all starts tomorrow and Saturday. It's a 2-day mini camp there, but they got a bunch of stuff coming up here over the summer, different from the last couple of years when they've really elected not to do some of the things in the summer. But we'll see see the Eagles out there, a little different approach, and that'll all be right here on Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco, everybody. What's up, man? We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
Yeah, man. Andrew DiCecco. Excellent coverage of the draft, and now the rookie mini camps are ready to go, and he's all over it here on the Sports Bash Football at 4.